All right, so let's get started. So this is the Creative Programming with Scratch workshop. Yes, so there will be a hands-on activity. So if you have a laptop or an iPad, get it out, and you'll need that for the activity portion. But if you don't have one, just sit next to someone who does so you can at least watch what they're doing. You can still get something out of the tutorial even if you can't follow along, but it's ideal if you can do it because that's what the students are going to be doing, and it's always good to experience what they experience if you're going to teach it. I am with, my name is Laura Ravel. I'm with Sally Ride Science, and I've been teaching Scratch programming for Sally Ride Science for, I think, 4 summers now. It's a 1-week camp, 3 hours a day for 5 days. So it's a half-day camp. And at the time that I started teaching, everything went virtual. So we're doing our camps completely virtual. And it worked so well that we continued that format, at least for the programming classes, because it's more inclusive. You don't have to have a ride to the campus. You don't have to spend money on gas. And you don't even have to actually live in the same time zone. So, you know, it's open to elementary school students, 3rd through 5th grade. Originally, it was designed for local students, but now that we're completely remote, we can accommodate students from other countries even. So I have a Bachelor's of Arts in Communication from UC San Diego, and I'm currently teaching for UCSD Extended Studies iOS Swift. Actually, I have a certificate in iOS Swift programming. I decided that I wanted to take their certificate program so that I would know what it's like to take the online courses that I would later be teaching. So I went through the adult program about 2 years ago during the lockdown when I didn't have a lot else going on because all the schools were closed. And so I completed that, and now I teach iOS Swift for UCSD Extended Studies, and I also teach front-end programming for high school students at UCSD Extended Studies. And then, like I said, I work for Sally Ride Science, which is also under the umbrella of UCSD Extended Studies, and that's where I do the Scratch camps. And the program where I teach iOS programming and front-end web development is actually for high school students, and it's called Futures. And for that one, we actually have had international students. I'm teaching one now where a student was enrolled from Mexico. And it's all offline, asynchronous, so you know, we just communicate via email, and the curriculum's all prepared ahead of time, and they can email me questions, and if someone's having extreme problems, like they can't get their IDE installed or whatever, which was the case with this student, I'll do like Zoom office hours. So some of my interests are yoga, pickleball, horseback riding, hiking, and camping with my family, and walking my dog. Fun fact is I have a brown sash in Kung Fu. So this workshop can be either a STEAM series like the camp that I teach over the summer, or it can be STEAM in a box because I also teach this camp, pretty much this exact workshop for the library system. And it's a 1.5 to 3 hour format depending on if it's virtual or in person. We find that 3rd through 5th don't have the attention span to attend online for 3 hours sometimes. So they are shorter if they're online. So that's one of the ways that we get that out there, and it's free to all library patrons. They just have to register in advance. And the workshop that you're going to do today, it teaches computational thinking skills using the Scratch programming language. So all workshop participants today will participate and create a game using block coding. So block coding is just coding where you don't have to actually type every single little line of code. It's blocks of code that have been prepared for you, and you drag and drop them onto the screen to create a program. So this is better for elementary school students because if you get into some like real programming languages like JavaScript, it's very nitpicky and you have to get all your periods just correct, and it's case sensitive. And so for people who are just learning to read and write, that's just a bit too much. We wait until high school to teach that. I also teach that as part of the front-end web development, but only for high school. So the intended audience for the workshops is elementary school kids between 3rd and 5th grade. Because once they get to middle school, I think they're ready for something a little meatier. This is good for their first entry to programming. Or if you attended the Scratch Junior workshop, maybe it's not their first attempt at programming. They can do it even before they're pre-reading using Scratch Junior, which is picture-based. So Scratch goes a step further, and you do have to be able to read, but it's still a drag and drop interface. So the program types that it would be appropriate for, you could do this in a school setting, in a public school. I actually teach for Alpine Education Foundation up in Alpine, and our nonprofit goes into the public schools and teaches STEAM subjects right in the middle of the day during their regular curriculum. So we get to teach everybody.
It's in the 4th grade San Diego curriculum.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Awesome. It must be only at certain schools because my students are
San Diego Unified is.
in San Diego Unified and they didn't do it.
Yeah, they just incorporated it this year. For the
Oh,
4th
awesome.
graders. Yeah.
Good. I'll have to look into that. Oh, really? Awesome. Well, they're finally getting on board with the coding at the young age because the kids really enjoy it, and I think it's really important. There's so many careers out there that are available to them if they can learn this stuff, and the earlier they learn it, the easier it's going to be later on. I didn't start coding until college, and I actually didn't know I liked it until I had graduated. And so I wish that I had been introduced to it earlier, and then I could have realized that I wanted to be a programmer and I could have majored in it. But by the time I figured it out, I was like a few semesters away from graduating with my degree in communications. So I just ended up learning afterward at UCSD Extension, at junior college. I went back to junior college to take programming classes after I graduated from UCSD, and just learning on my own. And it was the .com boom, so they were hiring anybody that had any kind of experience. So I got hired as a web developer after taking like 2 semester-length classes at a junior college. You can't do that anymore, but that was the boom times. And it's also good for after-school programs. You could do it as a club. You could do it as a paid program like a camp, or workshops like we do at the library. So we've talked about it a little bit, but I'm going to play a video for you about what is Scratch. So it's a free programming language available on the web at scratch.mit.edu. Can somebody close the door over there? You don't have to have any special equipment, just a computer and internet access. You don't have to download or install anything. So in that way, it makes it really easy. With Scratch, people can create a wide variety of interactive media projects, including animations, stories, and games. And then they can share those projects with others in a Scratch online community.
Quick question, do you have them create accounts?
So it depends. For library workshops, I don't, because I feel like we spend half of the workshop trying to get these accounts created, and it has to be an email address that can accept outside email. And usually 3rd through 5th graders, if they have an email at all, it's their school email, and it doesn't accept outside email from outside the district. So I skip that part when I do the workshops. But for the camps, I do, because they have homework that they have to complete after the fact, and the only way to save a project is if they have an account. So we will spend 20 minutes to half an hour at the beginning of class the first day creating these accounts, and it's laborious, but that's the only way to keep track of the work that they've done and save it until the next day. So Scratch launched in May of 2007, and since then, hundreds of thousands of people all around the world have created and shared more than 124 million projects. And that is a new statistic. I just looked it up February 17th. That should say 2023. So Scratch puts out an overview video that I'm going to play for you now. Okay, so that's, whoops, stop. That's just an example of some of the things you can do using Scratch. It's fairly powerful. You can do games, you can do cloud variables, you can have, people play against each other online. We don't get into that at the 3rd to 5th grade level, but there have been students that would ask me in camp, can I use cloud variables? And I'm like, sure. Sometimes the kids come in knowing more than I do, and that's fine too, because they have more time and they can teach us. And I also get a lot of ideas from them about other apps that we can use to integrate things into Scratch, like background eraser apps or drawing apps where they can draw their own sprites and import them into Scratch. But why should you learn it? Why should the students learn it? Number one reason is it's just fun. Scratch is fun. And when it's fun, people want to do it. So Scratch was created by a group at MIT called the Lifelong Kindergarten Group. And their mission was to create a programming language that was easy for kids to learn and fun for all ages. I feel like the name says it all, Lifelong Kindergarten. Sometimes when they get into school, they forget that school can be fun, and we want to bring that back. Scratch is easy. Scratch was designed specifically for kids so they could get started quickly. It uses block coding where you drag and drop blocks of code that are already written onto the scripts area to build a project. And Scratch is versatile. You can build stories, animations, and even games. Okay, so we are going to do just a little bit with your own Scratch projects just to get you started, and then we'll go into an actual video game tutorial. So Andrea asked earlier if I have people create Scratch accounts. I do when we have more time, but for today, you're just going to get started, and then at the end, if you have time, you can create your account and save your work at that time. But I want to make sure we get at least partway into the activity before we try to do that. And all of these slides will be available after the workshop on Google Drive. So if you don't have a chance to save it now, if you just leave your browser window open, it'll still be there probably when you get home, and you can save your account later, or in between the workshop, between now and the next workshop or whatever. So first you're going to go to the Scratch website, and the URL is scratch.mit.edu. You can leave out the HTTPS usually, and it'll still work. So go ahead and do that now. If you already have a Scratch account, go ahead and sign in. Otherwise, we're skipping that step for the reasons I already mentioned, which is time. So once you're logged in, go ahead and look up so that or once you've opened up Scratch, go ahead and look up so I can tell that you're done. So it should look something like, well, it looks different because I'm logged in, but you should get to a homepage that has these buttons at the top: Create, Explore, Ideas, and About. So is everyone there at the website? Yeah. Okay, so you're going to click on Create to create a new blank project. And you're going to see an interface that looks something like this. So Scratch follows a theater metaphor for the naming of the parts of the interface. So this large area in the middle that's blank is called the scripts area. And this is where you would drag and drop pieces of code. So over here you have your code tab. You see you have 3 tabs on the top: code, costumes, and sounds. So code is all of your code blocks. And this area over here where you see this cat, which is the Scratch cat, that's its name, that's the stage. So that's where you're going to see your project in action.
Is scripts and stage not used in any other programming later on? It's just tailored to Scratch.
The stage is just a Scratch thing, but a lot of programming interfaces have the idea of a code page and then a page where you view the results of your code.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be called a stage, but
scripts.
yeah, the idea is similar.
Canvas, is that the word they use sometimes for stage instead of other programming things?
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah, it depends on
Yeah.
another word I've heard.
I mean, there's so many different IDs. They all have their way of naming things, but usually there's some way to view the results of it. And then down here, these are your sprites. So a sprite is just another name for a character in video game parlance. And the sprites can wear costumes. So this is where the costumes tab comes into play. You can choose, a costume isn't just something that your sprite wears, although it could be that. A costume in Scratch is actually different poses too. So this is how you accomplish animation in Scratch, by switching from costume to costume. It's just a series of still images, just like in movies or TV. It's just a series of still images. So some sprites that are built in come with multiple costumes, and that way you can achieve simple animation just by looping through those costumes. And then your code area is organized over here by color. So blue is all the motion blocks, purple is all the looks, and looks are anything related to how the character appears on the screen. So anything from a speech bubble to the size, things like that. And then the magenta color here is sound. And you can record your own sounds, or you can import sounds that are on your computer. And they have a bunch of built-in sounds to choose from, like sound effects and music and stuff like that. And then the events are yellow. And this is where you would put your start flag, similar to the Scratch Junior seminar, if you went to that one. That starts all the action in the program. And then control is things like wait, repeat, loops, things like that. So control of flow. And that's common to every programming language. They're all going to have those features. Okay, so let me switch back to my slideshow real quick.
They're also called conditionals, controls, conditionals.
Yeah, so the if-then, those are conditionals. And that's when you're checking whether a condition is true, or sometimes the state of the condition. Okay, now I'm having trouble getting back to it. There we go. All right. There we go. All right, so you should have a new blank project. And we've already gone through this slide, which is the Scratch user interface, which is a theater metaphor. The sprites are the actors. They follow scripts. They wear costumes. They perform on a stage. And the stage has backdrops. Okay, so programming a sprite. To program the Scratch Cat, you're all going to participate now. You're going to go to the code area of the Scratch program. So I don't know if you can see my mouse very well, but that's this area that you see with all the blue blocks of code, okay? Go to that area and select the blue block called Move 10 Steps. And that should be the first one in the blue category. So if you click on that blue circle, you should see all of the move blocks. And you're just going to drag that onto the stage just like I did in the previous screen when I had the Scratch interface up. I'm going to switch back and do it with you now. Okay, I think I lost my first one, so I'm just going to start again. Okay, so right now we have our Scratch Cat selected down here, so any code that we put on the scripts area is going to apply to this sprite. So you're going to drag and drop your Move 10 Steps, okay? You've just programmed the Scratch Cat. So if you want to see what your code does, you just click on it, and you can see the cat move. He's going a little bit to the right every time. So it's that simple. All right, so we covered that slide. That's just a really quick overview and introduction, but we have a more detailed activity to go into, and it's in Canvas. So this is part of the week-long summer camp that I do for, actually no, this was part of the library workshop. So it might feel like it's really complicated because we're kind of skipping ahead to almost the end of the semester if you did a semester-long curriculum, but I'm going to walk you through it. So it won't be that hard. So we're going to create a simple maze game in Scratch. So you should already have a project open with the default cat sprite. And we're going to create a script that makes the cat follow your mouse. And in order to do that, we need to drag the control block, or the forever loop, which is under the control section. Remember, they're color coded, so control is in the orange category. And then that's going to be a forever loop. And inside of that, we're going to put 2 code blocks. They're blue, the point towards mouse pointer and the move 2 steps block. So let's do that right now. So to get rid of a block of code, you just drag that right back into the code section. That's how you delete code blocks. So the first thing we were doing was, we're going to grab a forever loop from the control section. So click on the orange circle to see all of your control blocks. And find the forever loop. Now the reason it looks like this with an opening in the middle is because you're going to put blocks inside of there, and whatever block you put inside is going to repeat forever. Does everyone have their control forever block in there? All right. Sorry, I keep clicking the wrong tab. The next one is going to be under motion. We're going to drag in point towards mouse pointer and move 2 steps. So under the top category, which is the blue ones, we're going to find point toward mouse pointer, drag it inside, and then we're going to do move. Now, I believe I said move 2 steps. In order to change it, you just click inside that white circle, and you change the 10 to a 2 by typing it in. Okay? Just tell me to slow down if I'm going too fast, or if you get stuck, raise your hand.
I have a question.
Okay.
If you're using a tracking pad instead of a mouse pointer, is that the same thing for?
Yeah, I'm using a trackpad. I gave up on the mouse a while ago. Yeah, it should say cursor to be technically correct. I think when they wrote this, people were still using mouses or mice. Mice? That doesn't sound right, but anyway, yeah. It's the same thing. It's wherever your cursor is. Oops. I'm going to close this one. Okay, so now the last thing we need is to trigger the event. We need something to make it start. And for that, we're going to go to the events and drag when green flag clicked right on top of that whole block, the forever loop. So now, once you get that in there, you can click on that block of code and test it out. So my cursor is over here. See, the cat's going toward it, even though it's not on the stage. So it's actually following my cursor. And it gets a little crazy when you go on top of the cat because it doesn't really know which way to go. So that's normal. Don't worry about that. Okay, and then you click this red stop sign to stop all the code in your project. The red flag up here above the stage. And if you would like to see your project larger, you can click on this full screen icon here, and you can play and see it bigger. And then they still have the red flag, so I usually like to test it while looking at the code. Okay, does everyone have that part working? All right, so let's continue. So the next step is to create a maze for the cat to go through. And the way we're going to do that is we're actually going to fill the entire stage with a color and then use the eraser tool to erase a path in the color. So make sure you're still, okay. Click the backdrops tab. So this is important. You must click the backdrops tab, which is over here. It's this little tall, skinny rectangle on the far right at the bottom. And if you highlight choose a backdrop, you have several options. You can choose from pre-made backdrops, or you can paint your own. So choose the paintbrush to get to the screen where you paint your own. And you're going to select the paintbrush tool and pick a color. I like this light blue color, and I have saved it already in previous projects, so it remembered this blue color. So now my paint bucket should be, why isn't it selecting it? I'm going to take the eyedropper tool and then click on that, and it should change it to that color. Well, it's not. Okay, so just use the sliders then to make it blue. So it was over here in the purple, this top color one, and I just dragged it to the left to make it look blue. Yeah.
How did you get to that light headlight?
So you click on backdrops over here. So if you're in the code view, you need to click over here. It actually says stage, but this is really this backdrop of the stage. So the bottom right, there's a button that says choose a backdrop if you hover over that one.
Or you can just do the tab next to code and sounds, right?
Yeah, we can get back to it by that way, but I don't think that one gave you, oh yeah, it does have the same button here, correct. Do you teach Scratch also?
My students do it and
Oh,
they love
okay.
it, and I've never done it.
I think you've picked some stuff up though.
I see why they like it.
Okay, so right now we have two backdrops just because one is automatically generated for you, and so we created a second one. It's okay, you don't have to worry about having more than one. Just select the second one because that was the one we were working on. And with your paint bucket tool selected, you're gonna, first click convert to bitmap. This is a step that always makes me crazy. Sometimes I forget to do that. Now, down here, now it says convert to vector because we already clicked it, but if I went back to vector, then I would click convert to bitmap. Okay, so now you can click on there and fill the entire stage with that lovely blue color. I won't go into detail about the difference between vector and bitmap because we only have an hour, but just know you need to be in bitmap mode to do that.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So let's go through, choose the color.
Yeah, so the fill color, if you just click on this box, it will give you some sliders, and you can just adjust your fill color by sliding back and forth between. What's that?
Oh, there it goes. I'm good now.
Okay. All right, so now we have a backdrop, and it's all one solid color, and we need to now erase a path in it for the cat to follow. So let's click on this eraser tool, which is this one down here. If you hover over it, you can see in really tiny text, it says eraser. And we need to increase the size because our cat is huge. And so to change the size of the eraser, you use this little size up and down arrows here, and I make it 100. So set your eraser size to 100, and then you can see how big it's going to be when you start erasing. So I like to make a kind of curved path because square corners are just really hard to follow, and make some space in between. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to look even like mine, but just make it simple. You need some curves to follow, and then if you made kind of really square corners, you might want to just go back over it and round them out a little bit. Just to make it a little easier to get that cat around the corners. And this looks really narrow. So just go over it as much as you need to. And we're also going to shrink our sprite down to fit in there. So don't worry about that. The cat is way too big right now to fit inside of there, but I want everyone to draw their maze first so that they know how small to make the cat.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you use brush or the eraser to make that path?
The white path is eraser. So you're basically getting rid of the background color that you filled it with initially.
It feels transparent behind.
Yes, it's transparent. You should see little hash marks in there where it's transparent.
Would it matter if you used a brush and did a white road instead?
No, you could probably do that too. Okay. So does everyone have a maze built? Okay. Oops. So first, let's shrink our our cat. He's way too big. In order to do that, you need to go to the sprite itself. So click on the sprite down here below the stage. And there's a little size box here. You could try 50, type that in, and then he's really tiny. I think that's too small, maybe 65. That looks small enough. I'm just gonna drag him around, see if it looks like he could go through there. I'm gonna go with 65. It depends on how big you made your maze. Everyone's game will turn out looking a little bit different.
You do that under the size bubble?
Yes, so if you select this cat down here at the bottom in the sprites area,
Yeah.
then you just adjust the size right here. I know it's really tiny on my screen. All right. So this is where it gets a little tricky. Now what we need is for the program to recognize if the cat has touched the colored area of the maze. So we're going to go to the sensing blocks. Well, actually, let's do the control block first. Okay. Sorry, we're gonna add an if-then block first. So click back on your code tab and make sure your sprite cat's selected. It should be because we only have one sprite at this point. Underneath the move 2 steps, but inside the forever loop, we need to add a control block that's an if-then block. So click on the orange circle for control and find the one that says if-then. And if you just drag it underneath the move 2 steps, the forever loop will expand and give you room to put it in there.
Are you able to zoom in a little bit on the page there? It's just hard to see the blocks.
Which one do you want to see? I can zoom in like this.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
How did you do that?
There's a magnifying glass on the right side of the scripts area. Sorry, I should have done that sooner. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm looking at it on my screen and it looks tiny here, but I don't really
You know the
see
colors
what you're
are like, I
saying.
just didn't feel like guessing.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what a conditional is. It's testing for a condition. So the condition we want to test for is if the cat touches that blue color. So we're going to go into the sensing blocks here, and we're going to pick the one that says touching color. Drag it into that trapezoidal type of shape. Whoops, not in there. Come on now. There we go. Just hover over that opening that looks the same shape. And make sure you get that in there because I probably need you to watch for the next step. It's a little complicated. Well, it's simple once you've done it, but it's complicated the first time. Okay, so does everyone have their if touching color then in place? Okay. So click on that green block. And what you want to do is select this eyedropper tool. Down at the bottom, there's an eyedropper. And when you do that, you can now select a color. I'm going to click on that blue, and it pops in that exact same blue. You don't want to guess and try to use the little color sensors or the color adjusters to try to get the right color. You want to get the exact color. So now it should populate if touching color, and it should be blue in here or whatever background color you chose. Does everyone have that portion done? Okay. So next we need to tell it, well, what do you do if the cat touches that color? And what we want to do is send the cat back to the beginning. You've basically failed getting through the game, and you're going to go back to the beginning. So the beginning is wherever you started your maze. So just drag your cat into the position that you want him to start at and the position that you want him to be returned to. This is sort of a hack at finding the coordinates, because otherwise you have to do a lot of jumping through hoops. So this is a quick and easy way to figure out where it should go and it's by placing it there now before you put in the next step. So if everyone's got their cat at the beginning of the maze, I'll show you the next one. You're going to go to the motion, and you're going to say go to X, Y. And notice, if you look at the position of the cat and the X coordinate is -208, and at Y it's -51. That is pre-populated by default into our go to XY, and that's why we move the cat first. So now if you drag go to XY inside of your if-then statement, you should have the cat return to the beginning every time it touches the side. So let's find out if that worked. Oh, I touched the side. So this is super hard, which means my cat's too big or my maze is too small. I can't even get past that first turn. So I'm going to stop, and I'm going to shrink my cat some more. I'm going to go back to like 55. Because the smaller your cat is, the easier it's going to be to get through your maze. So now it's following my mouse. It's following my mouse. This part's super narrow. Oh no, I went back to the beginning. So if I were doing this and I had more time, I would probably make my maze a little wider, but you get the idea. So, okay, do you have your code blocks in the same order as the picture? And the coordinates for the XY, did you remember to put your cat at the beginning before you dragged it out?
No, I usually add that one. Yeah.
You want me to take a look?
Yeah.
Okay, so this color you used eyedropper to add. And the X is 1 minus 190 something and minus 125. Is that where you wanted it to start? So just take that go to X out and then drag it in again.
Abajito del move to. And then you go to
Not random position, but see, now it defaulted to what was the position of the cat.
Hit the green flag.
And then here, and we would always scroll down.
Oh, yeah, your cat is pretty close to.
So you can match the color.
Does it go back if you touch the red though?
So that was it, what I,
To X.
So don't
I didn't
grab
run
and
the
hold,
green.
so just slide your finger.
fine.
Yeah, you don't need to
Oh,
push
I
the
see.
cat, it just, wherever your mouse pointer is,
I like
it will just follow.
Oh, tienes que mover tu
Alright, cool. Okay, so did everyone get the cat to follow the mouse and go back to the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. You're still trying to play your own game? Yay! So like I said, you can adjust how difficult it is based on the size of the cat and the size of the maze and how intricate your maze is. But as long as you got the basics working, you can tweak it later. So are you ready to add one more thing? I think we have time. We have 20 minutes left, so I want to save at least 10 minutes at the end for questions and filling out or passing out the punch cards. But I think we can get in one more step. Okay, so the next step is we're going to add a goal. And the goal is going to be at the end of the maze, and if you reach it, there's going to be a message that says you win. So in order to do that, we need to add a goal. That means we're going to add a new sprite, so hover over the cat head down here in the sprites area, and click choose a sprite, which is the magnifying glass. And there are a lot of sprites to choose from, so I'm going to filter by category, and for me it's going to be food. My cat is going to chase after some milk, so I'm going to select the milk.
Sorry, how did you get there?
So if you hover over the choose a sprite, and then go to the magnifying glass. Yeah. And then you can resize your milk or whatever Sprite you chose. My kids always like to pick a taco. I don't know why. I'm going to make it like 50. That looks more to scale. Well, it's as big as the cat, but for our purposes, it's good. All right, does everyone have their goal? Okay. So make sure your goal is selected, because now we're going to actually wait, let me reread this before I say that. Okay, so back in the cat sprite, make sure you're selecting your cat. Inside the forever loop, after the first if-then code block, you're going to add another if-then that says if you're touching the goal, say you win. Okay? So remember, select the cat. And you're going to get another control block, so it's under control. And you're going to say if then, and you're going to put that at the end, inside the forever loop, but after the first if block. And we're going to add a condition to our conditional. And the condition is going to be under sensing. So automatically, when you add an additional sprite, you'll get more options under this touching block. So you had touching mouse pointer, but now you should also have the sprite that you just added as a choice. Okay, so you can drag your if touching mouse pointer inside of there, but then you change it to if touching milk. All right, and what we're going to do if it touches the milk is play a message. And the milk is actually going to say you win. Well, actually, no, the cat's going to say you win, sorry. And the way we do that is through looks. And there are a couple of say blocks in here. You can do say for 2 seconds or just say. I think I said to use say for 2 seconds. So right now it says say hello, but you can just type in there a message that says you win. No, I mean you can, but I just leave it the way it is.
Can you change the font of that?
No, there is no font option for that. You'll see what it looks like. It's just a speech bubble, like, you know. I mean, I should say not that I know of, because who knows? Maybe there is some way to do it.
Add like clip art, that's your sprite.
Yeah, instead of using the looks, you could just add a new sprite
Yeah.
that magically appears when you touch it, and then it could say whatever you want in whatever format you want. But not in the say block, you can't format it. Okay, so let's play it. I'm going to actually maximize and view the project view and see if I can get to the end and see if my you win pops up.
Can you change the speed or sprite?
Yes. I need to make my cat smaller again. Okay. So if you want to change the speed that your cat is going, you would change the number here under move 2 steps. It would go more steps, because it's really like steps per increment of time. So if you wanted to go faster, and if we had enough time, we would add a bad guy, and we would make the bad guy go a little bit faster than the cat to make it more challenging. So you can tweak the settings to make it easier or harder based on how fast the cat moves and how fast the bad guy moves. But I think we're going to have to stop before we add the bad guy. All right, let me try to play this again. See if I can actually get around my corners here. Okay, so that's what should happen if you get to your goal. Do you want me to take a look? Let me go back to the code screen. Just make sure that your second if-then statement is outside of the first. If it's nested inside, it probably won't run. Here, let me take a look.
And I started playing games, but it's very like following instructions. I'm not. With the instructions, it would be nice to understand. Yeah. I started this year. That would be tough.
So did everybody get their goal working too?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so that's the end of part 1, and I think we're going to stop there because I want to make sure there's enough time for questions and answers. But if you're interested in saving your project, I'm going to click, you can give it a title. I'm going to call it Game Activity. And I'm already logged in, so I don't need to do any creating of accounts. But if you would like to do that now, I'll go back to the slides. So congratulations, you've just built your first game in Scratch. And you've now experienced how easy it is to learn Scratch. So this is actually the culmination of a semester-long course in Scratch. And the reason we can do it in an hour is because you were given the steps. But that's just a good example of how much scaffolding you can give to your students to get them to where you'd like them to be. If I'm doing a semester-length class or a 6-week course or a 15-hour camp, I don't give them all the answers. I like to let them experiment and, play, and everyone comes up with something different. I shy away from tutorials where everyone's project ends up looking the same, but in a 1-hour format, it's kind of hard to let everyone come up with their own project. So this works well for 1-hour workshops or 1.5-hour workshops like I do at the library. For the longer courses, I do a lot more like unguided exploration type activities. So you can save your project by just clicking Save Now if you have an account. If you're a new user, you have to create your account, leave your project open, and click Create Account. And it's free. All you need is an email address. You'd click Join Scratch, follow the prompts to create your free account, and it will send you a confirmation email to your email address. So once you click on that, you can create your account.
Where's the Save Now?
Well, mine's not going to show it because I've saved it, but if I made a change, like I could just put something else here. Now it shows up right here on the top right. Are you logged in or not logged in?
Isn't it auto
It does auto-save, so if it's not there, yours is probably saved.
Okay.
Yeah, that means it is saved. And then the share button is if you'd like other people to be able to see your work. And then they can view
Is there a
and
way to
comment
turn
on
off
it.
the comments? I get that question from the teachers, and I don't know.
No, actually the comments are built into the Scratch community. That's part of their mandate, and their goal is to have people share and comment. And they do have guidelines. And yes, I've had students make inappropriate comments and they've gotten warnings. And if they have more than one offense, they do get banned on that account. So they can...
Ban them from
I've actually banned my own students because I was just so annoyed. But it doesn't happen that often.
You can turn off that, or you just tell them you're not allowed to comment?
No, you can't turn it off. Their account gets blocked and they can't log in anymore. So yeah. And the Scratch community will do that. They have algorithms that check for things like bad language and stuff like that. But if it's just something sort of vaguely inappropriate, they might not catch it, and then someone else might just flag it, and then a person actually will go review it and say this is not appropriate, and then it'll probably get marked as like a warning, and then they get a couple of warnings, they get banned.
I've always found, and tell me if this is your case too, but like all the videos and animations that are made on there, like appropriate-ish. And then also the comments, like I've never had to worry about it, like throwing them on YouTube, like it's not the same.
Oh yeah,
thing.
it is the internet, so you can't be guaranteed, but they do, it is designed for kids, so they have people checking to make sure that
Yeah, that's what
everything's
I've
kid
experienced.
appropriate, and, you know, like I said, they have some automatic algorithms, and they actually don't allow even just unmoderated chat. If people start getting off topic, like about things other than the project, they'll get a warning that says unmoderated chat. So,
I have a question about the off-topic. Do the teachers do that, or do the Scratch kind of have people behind the scenes do that?
well, I have a slide here about teacher accounts, and I can talk about that, but let me hand out the punch cards first. Does anyone want to help me hand them out? Oh, they did? Oh, wonderful. Well, that saves me some time.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, I left a teacher account slide for afterward in case we didn't have time, but Scratch has the ability for you to create a teacher account, and that way you create all the students' accounts under your email address. Because like I said, some 3rd through 5th graders do not have access to an email that can get outside email, and that is required for a regular user account. So instead you create a teacher account, and then in class they get a specific link to click on, and then they create an account under your teacher account, and then you have control over it. You can reset passwords, you can do all the administrative stuff, and you can create studios where they put their work into various studios. And that's what I like to do because it makes grading easy. I say, okay, because the classes I teach for Sally Ride Science, even though they're 3rd through 5th, they are graded. They will get credit, and they will get a letter grade. So I go into the studio for that project that was assigned that day, and all the students have added their projects there. And then I don't have to sift through hundreds of millions of projects and search and try to find them. So I highly recommend a teacher account, and it's free. All you need to do is request one, and it takes them 24 to 48 hours to approve your account and get back to you.
I may have done that. How can I check if my account is a teacher? I know.
Well, if you try to create it again and your email address is already being used as a teacher account, they'll probably put up a little alert that says you already have an account.
Okay, I probably didn't then, because you have to email them and get access to do that.
Yes, there's a link.
Will it allow me to create a teacher account even though I now have a?
Yes, I have a personal account and a teacher account. And actually I have multiple teacher accounts because I like to separate the two jobs. So yeah, there's some more information in the slides about how to get to the teacher accounts. So you would go to the Scratch homepage and click for educators. So let me go back to the homepage here. And if you scroll down, actually my homepage looks different because, educator resources, it's up here because I'm logged in. So, and then there's a link for teacher accounts. And you can just click this and then request a teacher account. So I was on the home page, and there's a button called Educator Resources. This might be in a different place when you're not logged in. So I can sign out and show you. So this is what you're probably seeing. And you can click on For Educators. And it just takes you to that /educators page. And then click on Teacher Accounts. And then it'll prompt you for the information it needs for your teacher account. I don't know what their criteria is and why they need to approve them, but it's just an approval process. So I highly recommend that if you're going to be teaching because it gives you control over passwords and resetting passwords, and I have found that that is probably the biggest time waster is resetting passwords. So I also, when I'm teaching a camp, I require them to all get a journal, and day one they write down their Scratch username and their password in their journal, and they're supposed to bring the journal every day to class. So hopefully that eliminates some of that I forgot my password, but this way you have a quick and easy way to reset it, and it will actually just email you a link to reset the password. The only bummer part about the teacher account is when the class is over and you close the class, they no longer have access to their projects. So at that point, I send a letter out saying if you'd like to create your own personal account, you can copy your projects into there by downloading them and then uploading them into your personal account. So it's kind of cumbersome, but that's just the way it works. And if you'd like to, go ahead.
When the class is done and it clears out the students, then your teacher account's ready for another class?
Yeah, I mean, all the projects stay there. There's just a concept of open classes and closed classes. And closing it means the students no longer have access, because I don't want them logging into a class that I'm not teaching anymore and I'm not monitoring to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. So you just close it. You give them I usually give them a week after the class ends. And I say, hey, on the last day, your class is, or your projects will be available for a week. Here's how to transfer them to a personal account. And then I never see them again, so I don't know if they did it or not. But some of my students have followed me in Scratch, so I do see that they're still working on personal, or a lot of them, if they're into it, they already have a personal account. But I still require them to use a class account just because it makes managing it easier for me. And if you want to continue learning on your own, they have some great tutorials on the Scratch website. So
I've taught myself how to use it using the Scratch coding cards.
yeah.
$13.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't bought the cards. But if you are inside of a project and you click, I'm going to just start a new project so that this comes up. There's a tutorials button right here with the light bulb. And they have a whole bunch of built-in tutorials that just teach you one little concept. So you can teach yourself that way. You
I
can.
use the tutorials with my students a lot and just give them a few basics and here, go try one of these, just to kind of build their skills. And
Yeah.
it works well.
It works well. Then that's one of the first lessons. There's also YouTube tutorials, but some are better than others. The ones by Scratch Team are the ones that the Scratch organization puts out, and they're really well done.
Do you have any advice on, in the classes I've taught, where I'm learning as I go, there's kids that blow my mind, and they've created a Pong game and added other levels that are beyond my understanding. And then there's kids who sit there and be like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
So how, do you have any advice on how to help the kids who are scared of it or intimidated or just have already decided they don't like it?
I do have that sometimes, but you can actually recruit the ones who know what they're doing to help the people who are struggling. Because when I'm in there if I do the public schools, sometimes there's 32, 34 kids in a 5th grade class. Mm-hmm. It's really hard in a 45-minute period to get to everybody.
And to make sure they're actually doing it.
Yeah. So, and I've had students, one was mute and didn't speak, and he would come to me with a tablet and type what he wanted to ask, and that worked fine. It's like a universal language, so that wasn't even a problem. But yeah, it's hard when they're at different levels. But in our district where I teach, they have this curriculum starting in kindergarten. So they do coding and robotics kindergarten, and then 1st, 2nd, 3rd. By the time they're in 4th and 5th, they're pretty good. It really has helped. But you're always going to get various levels. And some of the kids know more than I do, and that's fine. I let them teach me. Sometimes I let them come up and share their projects and teach the class. I love to spend 5 to 10 minutes at the end of class sharing projects. So I can't share 32 projects, but you can share 4 or 5.
Can you access it in your account?
Yes.
So you don't have to have them bring up their computer and
No. I'll just say, what's your username? And they'll tell me, and I'll go into the studio and I'll pull up their project and I'll play it for the kids. And yes, once in a while they're not appropriate because I haven't pre-screened them.
Sure.
But if you set the guidelines up ahead of time, hopefully that doesn't happen very often. They're pretty good.
Create their own sprite. Can they say that to the sprite?
Yeah, you can import sprites. If you drew something, a lot of my students like to use a drawing app called Procreate, which is much more powerful than the drawing tools in a sprite, and then they import that as their sprite.
Will it save to the community or just their?
No, I think it's just part of your project.
Particular project.
Yeah.
They can't then they can save it.
You just have to import it every time. If you want to reuse it in another project, you import it again.
Yeah.
So we only have 1 more minute, but I just wanted to mention that all of the exercises that we did today came from the Creative Computing Curriculum, which is available for free. It was developed by, like I said, the MIT Lifelong Kindergarten Group. and it's maintained by the Graduate School of Education at Harvard. So they've put a ton of work into it and given it out for free. So there's a link here, and this workshop or this slideshow will be available in the Google Drive after the conference is over. So you can click on it. It's a, 60-page PDF. It has all sorts of information in it, and that's where I get most of my lesson plans from. Mhm.
It's gotta be somewhere else too.
Yeah, it's actually linked from that educator page on the Scratch website. That's how I found it originally. So, under educator resources. Yes, most of the kids have Chromebooks at the public, in Alpine they all have Chromebooks. And the ones that I do for Sally Ride Science, it's whatever they have at home. It doesn't matter, it's platform agnostic. Yeah, it's a web browser and that's all they need. I like to use Chrome, but they can use Safari if they're on a Mac or, Edge.
Safari on an iPad?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, you were doing it today, right? Okay, good. Yeah, the organizer of the conference asked me, would iPad work? And I'm like, sure.
Yeah, so that's where it's a little different, but yeah.
Yeah, it's all web-based, so they just need internet access and a browser.
Perfect.
I have a question regarding the username and password.
Uh-huh.
So I see that they are not required not to put email with the school and the student name information. And how are you going to kind of coordinate, distribute the username?
Oh, well, they pick their own username, but I like to tell them, pick your favorite animal or your favorite food. And so I get a lot of taco cats. Like, they have to be unique, so then it's
Right.
like taco cat 2080. I just say add some numbers. And then I make them write it down, because of course they're gonna forget, because now it's some random set of numbers after the name they actually wanted.
And you connect them and you look at it, create the password?
Yeah, when they sign up, they're given a specific link, and that's the only really cumbersome part, is I end up having to write the link on the whiteboard, and it's long, and they have problems typing it in, and that's kind of a hurdle we have to get past. If I had access to their emails, I could email them the link, but I don't.
Is it one link that everyone gets the
in the
same?
district.
Like, is the same link for
Yes.
everyone? Can I show you a shortcut? Have you heard of Jot Once?
Oh, is this like a bit.ly type of thing?
Kind of, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
really helped me because they just have to type Jot Once, they don't need a special code, and then you can create one. So like, if your link is scratch.mit and your word is angry, post Jot, and all they have to type is the word angry after they get to that website. Yeah, so this is really helpful. It's kind of like a clipboard type thing. Yeah.
That would be good.
But that
Thank
saves
you.
me so much time. They only last about a week.
That's
So,
perfect though,
yeah.
because they should all create their accounts on day one, and if they're
Right.
absent, then maybe a week later.
Right.
And then you could recreate it too,
You absolutely
right?
can, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just a quick shortcut that's really helped when kids couldn't log
Yes.
into something or couldn't access the website or whatever it was.
I
yeah.
like that. Okay, wonderful. Well, that's all I have. I'll be around if you see me in the halls. You can ask me more questions, but I want to make sure everyone can get to the last seminar at 3. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think so. I think it's where we had breakfast.
There's 2 different rooms.
It was like 2 together. It's 116, 118.
You're welcome.
I'm about the student accounts, so they create an account themselves, or?
Yes. So they will type in that link that you give them, and then it'll prompt them for choosing a username and a password, and then it asks for like how old they are and the country that they're. I think that's it. Okay. There's like 4 pieces of information they have to fill in.
You know where's the link to?
So when you create your teacher account, there's a feature called Add a Class. And when you add a class, then your class is assigned a unique link, a unique URL.
Okay.
And then you'll take that and you'll give it to the kids, either by writing it on the whiteboard, or if you're on Zoom, you can put it in the chat and they just click on it. That's much easier. But if you're in person, I've been writing it on the whiteboard. She had a better suggestion using Jot.
I've been using
Jot once.
Google Classroom, so
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, you could just post that link and then they can click on it and it'll be seamless.
Easy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stream, like, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question for you.
1 second.